Hello everyone, in the last video dedicated to the observations of UFOs or UAPs as we call them, we analyzed factors which may facilitate the observations of exotic and unusual objects in the skies above, such as the time of the day, the location, and so on. In today's video we will focus on how to distinguish between a bona fide observation of an object which may be exotic in origin from ones which are prosaic. But before that, thank you for your support and please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. It helps the channel a lot and spreads the knowledge on YouTube. In some of the past videos we have mentioned an office and organizational unit within the American Department of Defense Pentagon one named ATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Protocol, with Lou Elizondo, the person instrumental behind the 2017 release of declassified UAP videos, at its helm. This unit, as well as to the STARS Academy, have devised the so-called 5 observables, sometimes also mentioned as 6 observables, which help us separate actual and unidentified objects from those which have a human technological explanation behind them. In terms of observations, the most important is probably the first of those observables, sudden and instantaneous acceleration. What does this mean for us? First and foremost, it can be translated to a characteristic observed by some in the behavior of the UFOs. Those objects seem to move very erratically across the skies, suddenly changing its direction without any apparent impact on inertia on them, execute sharp turns, often at a 19 degrees angle, with acceleration and g-forces which would be lethal to any human pilot on board. It is also often noticed that those objects can hover still in one location and then take off with enormous speed. In some observed instances, being able to move from just over the surface of water to about 30,000 feet in a fraction of a second. Some of those observations claim that the objects move even faster than light, but it is more likely that they simply move faster than the radar resolution or the recording ability. They definitely can and do exceed the sound barrier, sometimes by a factor of 10, of 100, or even more in extreme cases. We can listen to the testimony of Commander David Fravor during the 2023 UAP hearing before the American Congress here.
Did this object come up on radar or interfere with your radar or the USS Princeton?
The Princeton tracked it, the Nimitz tracked it, the E-2 tracked it. We never saw it on our radars. Our fire control radars never picked it up. The other airplane that took the video did get it on a radar. As soon as it tried to lock it, it jammed the radar, spit the lock, and he rapidly switched over to the targeting pod, which you can do in the F-18.
From what you saw that day and what you've seen on video, did you see any source of propulsion from the flying object, including on any potential thermal scans from your aircraft?
No, there's none. There's no IR plume coming out, and Chad, who took the video, went through all the EO, which is black and white TV, and the IR modes, and there's no visible signs of propulsion. It's just sitting in space at 20,000 feet.
In your career, have you ever seen a propulsion system that creates no thermal exhaust?
No.
Can you describe how the aircraft maneuvered?
Abruptly, very determinate. It knew exactly what it was doing. It was aware of our presence, and it had acceleration rates. I mean, it went from 0 to matching our speed in no time at all.
Now, if the fastest plane on Earth was trying to do these maneuvers that you saw, would it be capable of doing that?
No, not even close.
And just to confirm, this object had no wings, correct?
No wings.
Now, was the aircraft that you were flying, was it armed?
No, never felt threatened at all.
If the aircraft was armed, do you believe that your aircraft or any aircraft in possession of the United States could have shot the Tic Tac down?
I'd say no. Just on the performance, it would have just left in a split second.
The second observable is one we have already mentioned, hypersonic velocity. Those objects are able to move around faster than the speed of sound, sometimes exceeding it by a lot. Speeds as high as Mach 4 to 6 are observed regularly by pilots reporting meetings with UAPs in the air. The speeds seem to be largely independent of the size of the UAP in question. Even large craft seem to be able to achieve enormous speeds without any particular effort on their side. Examples of those speeds include the Nimitz encounter, not just with the specific Tic Tac objects David Fravor faced in the air. For several days, the crew of the carrier have observed unknown and unidentified craft dropping down close to the surface level of the ocean, only to pick back up and lift with enormous speeds as tracked by their radar equipment. Sometimes the objects also leave no signatures, no sonic boom or electromagnetic traces. The third observable is the one we have already covered in the first video on the subject in much more detail. It's low observability. UFOs are rarely seen and observed. Objects at night are sometimes more visible thanks to the lights emanated from them, while daily observations are more difficult by default. The white or silvery color of many of the UAPs also contributes to the poor observation rates. An extension of this particular observable enters the realm of hypotheses, with some people claiming that those objects are sometimes able to become visible out of thin air and equally vanishing in plain sight. This in turn could potentially suggest the use of some kind of an advanced cloaking mechanism. Even further goes the claim of people who have tried to take a photograph or a video of UAPs. Even in the era of digital equipment, this is an extremely difficult feat, sometimes bordering on the impossible. Some experiencers even claim that the objects are possibly able to shut down electronic equipment and prevent them from being recorded. This would also imply extensive jamming capabilities of the, let's call them, true UAPs. Some people claim that the objects cannot be actually observed and only their surroundings are perceptible in fact. People who operate on the sea and near lakes, whether in professional capacity as soldiers or simply being present at such locations for leisure and who have observed UAPs at such locale, mentioned the fourth observable. This is the transmedium travel. UAPs have been seen to enter water bodies, usually with no to little splash, differentiating them from regular objects impacting water surface. The objects have been seen entering and exiting water at will, with minimal apparent interaction with their surroundings. There are videos presenting purported UAPs not only able to do that, but also able to split as they do their transmedium tricks. Then again, we also have a tangentially related category of USOs, or unidentified submerged objects, which we are going to hopefully cover in one of the future videos. The objects are also seen moving between low altitudes at the edge of space, as we have already mentioned. The fifth observable is called positive lift. This means that the objects seem to defy the Earth's gravitational pull, which we have already largely covered, and do not experience inertia as usual. This is combined with the apparent lack of visible means of propulsion. There are no visible engines, wings, propellers, thrusters, jet engines, and other sources of motive power typical for our known technologies. This would suggest some advanced means of propulsion which we usually have devised on paper and in theory only, with potential practical solutions existing in the form of patents only, at least according to the publicly available knowledge. In addition to the 5 observables mentioned above, some add an optional 6th observable, one which is particularly difficult to observe, especially in combination with the craft. We have almost universally only the word of mouth of the experiencers in this case, with the other option being the alleged crash and retrieval operations involving potential biologics collected from the sites. One of the extremely rare cases in which the occupants or pilots may have been recorded involves the Kumburgaz sightings in Turkey from 2008. But the quality of the video recorded back then is unfortunately poor, and the claim that occupants of the UAP have been recorded, while convincing enough for some, is equally contested by the others. I hope that this brief summary of the observable characteristics of quote-unquote true UAPs and their sightings will help those interested in watching the skies for unusual objects. If you happen to notice one of them, you may consider reporting them to proper organizations such as Americans for Safe Aerospace, NUFORC, or their national equivalents if they exist in your country. We will definitely continue to explore the physics of UAPs, as the topic is extremely fascinating and is actually the subject of rare scientific studies carried out by the academia. Until then, thank you for watching, stay tuned and stay open-minded. The reality around us is much bigger than we usually think it to be.